Welcome back to Media7. When TVNZ announced it was investing more than $10 million in a 1/3 share in Hybrid TV, the regional licence holder for the TiVo digital video recorder, this thing here, it seemed a reasonable bet. The emblematic TiVo brand and the technology that came with it might help the broadcaster push back at Sky, whose My Sky DVR is the market leader. But last week, TVNZ announced in its half-yearly report that it had written down its entire investment in Hybrid. Meanwhile, the TiVo reportedly limps out of stores, and reports say the business is down to a skeleton staff in Australia. What the hell happened? Jose Barbosa investigates.
A huge influence on whether or not a product takes off or not is the consumer experience. Here now to give a technical appraisal of TiVo is Hayden Green. He's the technology writer for Consumer New Zealand. Welcome, Hayden.
Hi.
Consumer tested TiVo and other PVRs last year. What were the results of that?
TiVo was up in the sort of top band of recorders, but it was still well behind the likes of My Sky, the generic recorders from Zimwell and Magic. As someone who uses a lot of these sorts of things and uses a lot of these menu systems, I found it to be quite difficult. It took me ages to figure out what the little red and green thumbs were. Turns out you can like programs. You can search, but the search is just basically an alphabetized search, and it's awful. This is your TV guide. You'll note that you can't have Prime. There is no guide for Prime TV, and there is no guide for Māori TV. So by them having their own content system, they lose out on a couple of channels. It's got this annoying like bloop, you know, the TiVo noise, the bloop, bloop, bloop as it goes through. Casper was the system where you can download movies and TV and some music and so forth. It's a very limited selection of movies. The selections are not available in HD, and you are not able to purchase whole movies. You can only rent them for a particular amount of time. As you can see, their new releases aren't entirely brand new video releases. I would say that based on our test results, there are better things out on the market that you can get. You should look at those first before looking down at the TiVo and seeing whether you want that.
Thank you very much for that, Hayden. Back to you, Russell.
Why, thank you, Jose. Now, with me now is Sunday Star Times business editor, Rob O'Neill. Welcome, Rob.
Hi.
Now, all the talk is of TiVo as a failure, particularly since the half-yearly report last week. What's the actual situation out there in the market? Do you know anything about that?
Well, they're not really releasing numbers for New Zealand, which is interesting. They say it's commercially sensitive. There have been some numbers released in Australia. The last numbers I saw were about 80,000 sales in Australia. I've done some calculations on Hybrid TV. New Zealand does have to report to the Companies Office, put a financial reports up there. And for the first 8 months of trading, they reported $16 million of revenue in New Zealand. Now, if you do a rough calculation, I figure that to be about somewhere in the region of 25 to 30,000 units. My Sky sold something in the region of 80,000 in its first year, so you know it's more or less 3 to 1. And recent figures for My Sky HDI is 230,000 units out in the market. I'd be very surprised if TiVo had a quarter of that.
Right, me too, because I mean, I can think of any number of people who have a My Sky. I can't think of that many who have a TiVo. No. Actually, perhaps we should just briefly get a show of hands on this. Audience, who has a TiVo at home? Okay. Does anyone know anyone who has a TiVo? One. We have one. I think that's possibly quite telling, Rob.
It is. You know, it's interesting that TVNZ is still sort of hanging tough on TiVo being a going concern and so forth, Hybrid TV. At the end of the annual report, there is a contingent liability noted that TVNZ may have to stump up some more money for Hybrid TV Australia. So clearly no decision has been made as of the release of that document about the future of TiVo and their investment, but there could be more costs coming.
One particular feature of the way TiVo was rolled out in New Zealand was the exclusive deal with telecom retail shops. The only place you could buy it was a telecom shop. I still find people who think who didn't buy a TiVo because they thought you had to be a telecom broadband subscriber to use one, which isn't the case. Was that a real mistake?
Well, I think it was a mistake. Obviously, the perception was it limited the market from a perception point of view. But of course, it was also Telecom that was offering the 0 rating for downloaded content through Casper. So to some extent, it was a real issue. It wasn't necessarily just a fake one. So people probably were right to be a little bit concerned about that. But yeah, the close tie with Telecom, you would have thought they would have gone out for a broader retail strategy. They launched in the middle of a recession, asking $900 or more than $900 for a unit. I think that was ambitious. They've now dropped the prices back. That's got to be a sign that they're not exactly racing out the door.
Well, are they now $399 or something?
Yeah, I've seen them at $360 for Telecom subscribers, of course. But yeah.
Is there any future for it, do you think?
Without content deals, I mean, this is really the heart of the problem, is it's the battle for content. And you saw already that there isn't an awful lot of prime content on the Casper system. There's also a rumour that Casper's for sale, that it's being sold. I mean, there's a lot of rumour because there's not a lot being said, you know, but if Casper is for sale, then that's not a good omen at all. If they can't get decent content deals, which, you know, Sky really is in the driver's seat in that department at the moment, I would say no. Is
there any prospect of a backtrack on the retail strategy? Because we've talked to retailers who said, well, we probably could have sold some if we'd had them, you know, the likes of the big box retailers.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only game left, really, isn't it? I mean, you know, can you move boxes? I mean, this really isn't a box. You have to get the boxes out there. You know, you have to sell the boxes. But it's really about creating a system to deliver content that you can charge for. You know, that's Sky's great advantage. It gives them the power in the market to dominate content, and TVNZ doesn't have that power anymore.
Well, we'll see what happens. It's not looking great at the moment, though. Thank you, Rob O'Neill. Okay. It's time now for a news mash. We haven't had one for a while.
Bullying videos have gone viral on sites like YouTube and Facebook. So how do we make adolescents understand the high stakes of their sharing of their lives online?
Because we all know how pernicious voyeuristic videos of vicious bullying can be. But when you and the kids can see it over and over again on the news, along with millions of other people, well, that's different.
The clip we're about to show may disturb some viewers.
Extra points to Campbell Live for not only showing the video repeatedly, but using the version with added sound effects. And if a bullying video isn't actually on the internet, no worries, because TV News will go and find it for you.
And a warning, the images you're about to see in Matt McLean's story are graphic.
Simon, this footage has been doing the rounds in Wanganui, and we travelled there today to obtain it. The father of a local schoolgirl saw it and contacted us, saying it made him physically ill. We've also heard other people have cried.
You really want to see it now, huh? Well, you can't. We're not showing it. Hire a DVD or something. The internet, clearly to blame for everything. And that completes our show for this week. Thanks again to Rick Shera, Jane Kelsey and Rob O'Neill. And thanks to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.